Welcome again. My name is Thomas from the National Foreign Language Center. I'm here with my colleague, Laura. Hi, Laura.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be with you.
So we are here at the end of the three-day virtual summit, our first one, and we're going to try to summarize what some of the messages we heard today and over the last 3 days. We've had over 6,000 registered participants, 70 sessions, 24 live stream events. What did we had? We had 3 student panels, middle school, high school, post-secondary. We had 6 amazing featured speakers that brought me and I think a lot of other people out in the Twitterverse to tears at times. And so I think we should probably talk a bit of why we had such emotional reactions to these conversations over the last 3 days, and what does that mean going forward? Because just because the summit is officially over today, of course, doesn't mean that the learning has to stop after the sunset check.
And as a matter of fact, it doesn't have to stop since everything is available until the end of August. So learning can continue.
What a great reminder. So yeah, all of our sessions will be on the YouTube channel. The Google Docs remain open. So we hope that people will continue to watch the sessions, continue to interact with each other, maybe more asynchronously on the Google Docs, share notes, share reactions, share additional resources that they have that go along with the topic, and continue learning as we all prepare to go back to the new normal of school for 2021.
I like that new normal. That's what it's going to be.
Yeah, and so that's how we started this morning with our keynote speaker, our featured speaker, Clarissa, and we thought she had some powerful messages to share with us, right?
She did. I'm especially struck by how she brought in her circles, the things that we need to think about, and how we have to really think about with intentionality what we do.
Yeah, and then one of the quotes that I thought struck me was when she said, "If it's happening in the world, it is happening in my class."
You know, I think that's something that a lot of the sessions that I've attended to, the student panelists on all 3 days made it crystal clear that they want that relevancy, the explanation of why with the generational divides and what they want. But I've always said that if the whole world is talking about something and we're not talking about it in our classrooms, that we're really missing an opportunity. It's important to bring the world into our classrooms. And I know that as a young teacher, I was so hung up on coverage and textbook and chapter by chapter and pacing and what for some reason I believed I had to do, that I forgot that we're not learning a language to learn a language. We're learning a language to learn about the world we live in. We're just using a language to do that. And I think that there are so many issues out there right now that deserve to be brought into our classrooms, that we're going to have to think about, what do our kids really want to talk about? How do we bring those pieces in, especially at the beginning of the year? I think about my 9-year-old grandson, Thomas. You have a daughter going back, and I don't know if what I've always done to start a year would work.
Probably not. Yeah, I was thinking about the other day, we're not buying school supplies this year.
Isn't that the strangest feeling?
It is a strange feeling. We didn't get the list.
Well, and actually, the school district that we live in announced that no one would be asked to buy school supplies. They don't want all that individual stuff coming in.
From people, yeah,
they're going to buy them so that they can control touching better. So I think maybe that's a message for us too. If schools are saying no school supply lists, what are we saying no to? What are we putting in our colander and letting it fall out so that we can bring in this real world aspect?
Yeah, and it came up with the students as well. Actually, something that they want us to say no to is this idea of, we're talking about assessments, right? They liked the idea of assessments. They were not opposed to assessments. They thought it was great to help them in their comprehension and provide them accountability, providing a deadline. It gave them feedback that they needed, and they wanted that. It gave them those clear goals and structures, which is something that we know from students. They actually appreciate that, but they wanted it perhaps without all the attachment of points and grades, all that thing. So they see the bigger value in the assessments, actually.
Well, and I also thought it was just so great today to hear the students use the word integrity over and over again, that they recognize that, we just have to be honest with our students that we're looking for integrity. That means that we have to create assessments, tasks. I don't think we should just think of it as assessments. I think we should think of it as the learning experiences, the day in, day out tasks, and they're all mini assessments anyway. So are they open? Do they allow students to show us what they can do? Or are they asking for right and wrong answers? Because when we put them on the spot, we start giving points, then they start complying, and then that forces them maybe to behaviors that they know they shouldn't do. Whereas if the task is open-ended, they know they're going to get coached, they're going to get feedback, then they're going to become risk takers, and in the end, they're going to learn a lot more. So I think that's key on us to create those assessments that are open, they're real, they feel as real as we can make them within the context of the classroom. And I know my panel just talked about, the family tree project, which might have been a project of the past, but we need to hold it up. We need to think about it. And maybe this year kids don't even want to talk about their family because they've been with them for way too long. Even in good families, we've all seen each other more than we've ever seen each other before. So you might be really ready to look outward and think about
chop off some of those branches.
Yeah. Let's chop those off.
Yeah. That actually reminds me also of something else that the student talked about, which was when we asked them about what should happen in those, what should the teachers let go? Was it effective? Was it good instruction? And it was interesting how they talked about that a teacher should really think about the kinds of activities that they would do in the classroom that really requires them to be present, and only do those during whatever asynchronous learning opportunities they have, and forego all the other ones. And one of the students, when I forgot who it was, but when they're talking about foregoing those, they were talking about like vocabulary practice, which I thought was really interesting, because that means the students realize that it may not be something that they really need a teacher for, and that may not be even as helpful. And so they were really craving in their life synchronous contact with the teachers, they were craving true interactions, right? That's what they wanted. They want interactive tasks, they want interactive activities. And I think, when let's say magically we all go back next year in January, what that means then for going back to the classroom, because those aren't just messages now for online learning. I think those messages apply for those folks who are going back now or later. Students know when we're just BSing. They know when we're just giving them busy tasks. They're fully aware, and we're kidding ourselves if we're thinking that because we're the teacher and we know better, that this is a meaningful experience right now. They're fully aware. It's just, some kids are more compliant than others, and they know how to play the game. And perhaps after this pandemic, they might be less inclined to be compliant because they're aware. It feels like almost this whole pandemic thing has taken like the secret blanket of teaching, and kids are more aware, and parents seem like hyper aware about what's now happening in classrooms, and maybe we don't get to get away with everything like we had in the past.
Well, and also if we can bridge the gaps of equity in terms of what students have at home in order to learn, we really have the opportunity then to do something really exciting, which is to turn all students into learners, self-directed learners. That's what they're being asked to do right now. Some are going to come out more successful than others because of their current home environment. But I think that if I were going back into the classroom, my first effort would be to get to know my learners, which we've heard from every one of our
every session, every panel.
You've got to know me before you can even begin to design that curriculum and entice me into it. And that doesn't mean getting to know them in English at the beginning of the year. It means designing experiences that allow you to get to know the learners. But once we really know who our learners are and we're moving forward with choices and topics, what can they do on their own? And what can they do? What do they really need us for? And I think that we will be far more intentional about how we use those precious synchronous minutes in order to make sure that we move learning forward. You know, Thomas, I think we tried to do this with this conference format to some extent. We spent a lot of time talking about what can we pre-record and make available, and it actually provided choice. It wasn't like everybody has to watch this and do this before we do this, but it was flagged as this is one of the things that would help you with planning, or this is one of the things that would help you with assessment. You choose what you want to do in that asynchronous time, but then we tried to create some experiences that would build community and that would allow us to process and talk and think together. And I think that there's a message in what we're learning about virtual learning right now that should perhaps inform what we think and do in our classrooms.
Yeah, I hope our audience picked that up. And not only did we have pre-recorded session, of course, that give participants a choice, but it's almost like a little forced choice too, because we grouped them intentionally and we could have released them all at one time. We could have just said, you know, Monday morning, here are all the sessions, go watch whatever you want. But we didn't do that. We grouped them together, we released them at staggered times, and then supported them through panel discussions, right, that were attached to those sessions. So we had synchronous events that were aligned to the asynchronous learning that was happening. And then you mentioned the collaborative aspect, of course, the Google Docs, which seemed to be very popular with the participants, was an opportunity for not teacher directed, so meaning us as the organizers, but directed by the students, or in this case, the participants, to really do what they think they need in order to process their learning. And I do think that's a good model that may or may not apply depending on what kind of requirements the districts obviously ask you to do, but we do think there's elements that could apply to almost any kind of learning situation. Because you could even shrink this whole concept of the conference down onto a one-day classroom experience as well, right? So you start perhaps with something that's a live event, meaning I don't want to use the word lecture, but you know what I'm saying, like your introduction to something, and then you give them asynchronous opportunities, perhaps some stations that they can move around freely, and then you bring them back for some kind of reflective task along the way. So there's lots of applications I think of this conference model that applies to online learning, real classroom learning, or just learning in general. And I hope our participants saw that.
I hope so. I think they probably have. I think one of the other themes that came out today with each of our speakers was this theme of diversity. You know, that we're not all the same, that how are we really going to address the needs of our students? And one of the things that Clarissa said this morning was that this type of conference is hopefully allowing people to build this collaborative team. She said, is my collaboration team as diverse as my learners? Mm-hmm. And for me, it was almost like a slap in the face, a good one, you know, like, wake up, Laura. But, you know, we are apart, but we need this ability to talk to others from other communities and other worlds, because otherwise it's too easy to settle into a routine that works. But we know that there's one or two learners that it doesn't necessarily work for. So we all need more people. And I really think that this notion of virtual is giving our students a chance to also reach out to more people. One of our presenters, and I always wish I could throw the name out there, but I'm not good at that, you know, suggested that it's easy now to do a Flipgrid between a class in another country and a class here, so that the interaction on Flipgrid is not just your classroom, but it's your classroom with others, or a Padlet with others, or a Twitter feed with others. And I think that it's showing us how we could bring people truly from around the world. I know there were people from other countries during each of our keynotes. How can we get our students, how can we use what we're learning through virtual technology to get more people, more opinions, more diversity of thinking into our classrooms, so that they're seeing the world as more similar than different.
Well, and the nice side effect is, and of course I can't remember now off the top of my head the name of the research, but there's some studies out there that show that kids perform at higher levels when it's a true real world audience, right? When I'm just doing it for Madame Terrell, I'm not going to perform at my perhaps best level. But when I know there are these real kids somewhere in whatever, West Africa, reading my Padlets, then I'm going to make sure that this is my best work. And so that's a great reminder that those real world audiences are so important for the kids.
And those are our assessment tasks. Those are our perfect assessment tasks.
Yeah.
I think sometimes that we've gotten carried away with the idea that summative assessment has to be big. It really doesn't have to be big. I think it's far more important that we, give them opportunities to show us what they can do more frequently without an emphasis on what is the final, because it's hard to pull it all together. It may be even harder to pull it together in the virtual world, but if I can catch that Thomas is lagging just a little bit, I can design an experience for him. And if he's not so interested, but he gets a response from someone in another country to something he said or posted, it's bound to catch his attention and move him forward.
So speaking of final, and knowing you have given lots of workshops with lots of teachers, and I've given my few share. We've got a question from the audience that I know I get no matter what the topic is.
Okay.
So you probably know what this question is about.
Maybe.
So I'm just going to read it. We'll see if you want to answer it. I'll give my standard answer, but this is what I'm not surprised, because again, that question comes up. It doesn't matter what the professional development is. Of course, it's going to come up in this setting as well. It's a valid one. It's an important one. What can we do about grading now that we will concentrate more on frequent formative assessments instead of summative assessments? What would be a good grading scale? You want to take that one?
Yes, but I'm very opinionated on this one. So I have two things I'm going to say that are very serious. First of all, we're in the middle of a grading conversation in education that is moving us forward. And I really do encourage teachers to involve themselves professionally in that conversation. And I think that it depends. I'm going to answer your question, I promise, but it does depend to some extent. Where is your school and your district? How far you want to go? Because you do want to move to standards-based grading, but it could be a journey. So when I'm answering a question about grading, I try to put all of the emphasis, I don't care how you set your grade book up, on real world or as close to real world tasks as you can make them. And when you're asking students to do something that they would never do on the streets of Madrid, the streets of Paris, there are no points associated with that task. That is the practice for the real world event. That's going to soccer practice and working on kicking. It's not the game. So the grade is based on playing the game. And I think that if we can move away from fill in the blank questions, nobody's going to walk up to you and say, conjugate this verb before you can eat in my restaurant. That's just not going to happen. And so we've got to make sure that our assessments are giving feedback on the modes of communication, and that's how we're putting our grade together. The second thing I say, and I mean this one sincerely, is you and your colleagues must agree on how you grade and what your grade book looks like. If there are 5 Spanish teachers, pick on them because usually people have multiple Spanish teachers. It's absolutely essential that every one of those teachers has the same grade book, the same grading philosophy. Because if not, you're changing your grading rules. And it's like changing the rules of baseball from JV to varsity. And that's not fair to the student. Then I believe that you get an opportunity to repeat. It isn't final. If it's not where you want it to be, you do it again. In real life, you can do things again. You get better at them. So I just think there's a lot that goes into grading, and it's not a simple answer.
No,
but don't grade things that aren't real.
And I would like to maybe connect back to our pandemic conversation. In the TEL framework, there's a statement actually about grading that talks about that make sure that you value communicative tasks more than, language knowledge or understanding of language. But I think the message that we have to remember is that grades communicate, unfortunately, a lot to kids, right? So whatever value we put in is whatever they're valuing. So if we put a lot of high percentage into homework and quizzes, then the students will value that. But we communicate something to the kids. And I think it's not just true about grading. Right now, this is true about everything. And as a father who sees his own child going through Zoom school, everything that the teacher does communicates something really important to the kids about learning. And in our case, it communicates something really important about language learning. And so the grading scale, the assessments, the activities, it's going to be this time, even our schedule of asynchronous versus synchronous, everything says something to the students about this is how you learn. This is what school looks like now, or this is what the value of learning is. And they're gonna put everything on that scale, our students are, because we're telling them, we're giving them really, we're sending them very implicit, explicit messages about what values, what things we value. And so grading can be really dangerous, but also really powerful, positive way if you're using like standards-based grading, for example, to communicate to kids what's important. So I think that would be my important reminder to really think, maybe use that as an opportunity. Why not? You have an opportunity right now where everything is on. This is the best time to change your game. You can't do it wrong, right? This will be the year to try something completely new.
And you can justify everything.
Yes.
I mean, an administrator can't come to you and say, that's not going to work. Who knows what's going to work? So, it's our chance to make it the way we want it to be. And I think that grades should convey from the minute a child steps into school that they can do this. Yeah. And the worst thing you can do is convey to a child that they are inferior to someone else, that's Hattie's word, by a grade. Because as soon as in level 1, let's just say it's level 1 middle school, high school, we say, you are a C French student. They are on the path to dropping out. And then we raise another generation of students who don't really value language for what it really is.
And I don't know how you can be a C student in the first year of French class. You're novice low, novice mid. Like the only way you could be a student if you're sleeping, but then that's a different problem. That's not
that's a behavioral
problem.
Issue to deal with. Something's going on at home. There's something to deal with there. Because there's somebody, I don't know who writes this, but it sticks with me all the time, and I think we should espouse it. In kindergarten, every kid would raise their hand if you said, can you dance? Every kindergartner will say, yeah, I can dance. I can sing. I'm an artist. Yeah, I can speak Spanish. And all they can say is hola from Dora, but they can speak Spanish. But somehow as we move them up, they say, oh, I'm not good at this. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at this. Well, let's make this the year that they're good at languages. They're really good at languages. They have too many issues going on in their world to make learning another language one of the things that they're failing at. When the world needs all of this complexity, all this diversity, building community, bringing people in, then we need to make sure that everybody succeeds. And I can't tell you how, if I put one theme on this conference, it would be success. Because really, whether it was a keynote or a student panel, but a technique for learning tools, it was all about building success for learners, to put that emphasis on learning. And I just think that's the message we have to take forward as best we can.
Well, and I thought that Clarissa did a real nice job of sharing that message this morning when she told us that maybe this is going to be, or not just maybe, she said, this is going to be the best year that you've ever had as a teacher. And what a powerful message, because I know so many teachers right now are scared and nervous, and those are all justified. There's justified reasons for being nervous and scared right now, but I thought it was really encouraging to hear her say that this is going to be the best year you ever had. And we've kind of hinted at some of these things. This is a year you can try out things. This is a year that you can do maybe some of the things you've been wanting to do, but you thought wasn't possible. But then she also said it's going to be because you're going to be intentional. And
I love that. Mm-hmm.
That's
you're going to be intentional. Message. You're going to ask why before how.
Yeah.
You're going to ask why does this matter? Every single thing you do, because every teacher has to take, we talked about curriculum and letting things run through the calendar. Well, I think teachers have to put all their practices in the calendar and let some things fall out so that they can survive this year.
Yeah.
You cannot do it all. And so I think the intentionality is not just about our intentionality for our students, but it's our intentionality for ourselves too, so that we're taking care of ourselves as best we can.
Which is what
Thomas,
told in the afternoon, right? When she said, be kind to yourself. Being told us that in the afternoon when
be
she
kind.
said, be kind
Someone said in the panel, give yourself grace.
Yeah.
Give your students grace, because we just really have to make sure that we're taking care of each other right now.
But teachers are really bad at that. So I think you're right that being intentional about with the kids.
They're better at doing it for their students than they are for themselves.
Oh,
they're better at doing it for their colleagues than they are themselves.
Yeah,
so I think it's a message for all of us. Thomas, you started the conference out by answering a question about how do we choose what to do? There's going to be so many choices in this conference. How do we actually choose? And I want to take us back to a way that teachers could continue this conversation using Catalyst. And I thought you might just want to say a couple of words about the potential that Catalyst has for bringing teachers together.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure people have noticed it. It's at the bottom of every Google Doc. We've put a little box there for people to sign up and encourage them to create an account on Catalyst. Catalyst is an online portfolio designed for teachers, language teachers specifically. And this is a way where you can kind of document your journey as you go through this upcoming year, where you can think about what are your strengths as a teacher, what are your goals for the upcoming year, and then kind of make a plan for how are you going to meet your goals, because that's the other thing. This year or any year, teachers have a lot of ideas come summertime. I want to do this, 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 and this, and this, and this. And then usually then you have your opening faculty meeting, and then half of that goes out the window because your school goes in a different direction. And then the reality happens, you have an extra prep you didn't know, and then all these wonderful plans don't quite happen, and you end up teaching the way you did, and you feel bad about yourself, which is not a good place to be. And so Catalyst kind of allows you to make a plan and even set timestamp goals, perhaps by October, by the end of the first semester, by the time you go back face to face, by the end of school, you want to achieve certain things and you have to kind of commit to them. But the nice thing about it is you're not alone. Catalyst is designed to be a platform, a community of practitioners. So you can find other people who have perhaps the same strength as you, or perhaps they have a strength in something that is a growth goal of yours. So you can find a teacher that's already good at something that you're trying to get better at. And now you can reach out to them. So again, you don't have to do this by yourself.
And I think it addresses two things that our keynote featured speaker said. When Yang was saying coaching, it's a way of getting a coach. It's a way of building your community. When Clarissa said, I have to grow my community. If you're all alone out there, you don't have colleagues, this is your way to reach out. And Thomas, you forgot the best word about it. It's all free.
It's all free.
It is a completely free platform. So it's great. It's a great tool for building community and learning and growing together, and possibly extending the learning of the conference.
Absolutely. I think that's a great way to end it. We hope that you guys use this conference and these sessions as a starting point to plan what you're going to do in the school year. We hope you found tools and resources, new colleagues in those sessions that give you the support that you need. And all we can say is just wish you the best of luck for this upcoming school, whatever it will bring. We appreciate all the feedback that you've shared with us. Everybody who's participated in the conference obviously is going to get a very brief survey. So you can share with us what you like, what would you like to see more of. And then who knows, maybe we'll do this all over again next week. No, probably not, but
maybe not. Maybe not. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your participation. I've learned so much from so many of you. I really appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Thomas.